What's going on, everybody? This is Island Hopper TV, and today we're going to talk about how I travel the world and you can too. So, I'm sitting in my hotel room here in Bangkok, Sukhumvit. For those of you who know Bangkok, you know Sukhumvit. The reason I'm making this video and I have this whole long list of notes is because I get this question a lot. I'm not going to say it's yeah, it might be one of the most popular questions that I get. By the way, thank you to the people who are already hitting the likes as we're putting this out there. Um, People always are wondering how they can also travel, and I'm more or less going to give you the tools that I used to get to this situation that I'm in, where I've been traveling pretty consistently since 2014. Um, but more consistently, I would say since 2017. I've been to 72 different countries. Some of these countries, like Thailand, I've been here, I think, like 10 times. I've been to Philippines like 5 times, Singapore like 10 times. So I keep going back to some countries. So I could go to, like, I've never been to Sri Lanka. I've never been to Nepal. I've never been to the Maldives. I could go there instead of go to Thailand, but I keep coming back to Thailand and some of these other places instead of racking up crazy numbers. But I spent, let's see, 9 months, maybe about, yeah, 9 months of 2022 on the road, not in my own bed, basically in other countries. So I've only spent like 3 months in the United States last year. This year I spent like 4 months in the US. So I've been on the road now for going on 5 months, 4.5 months. And I say this because I'm not just someone who's, trying to give advice without actually doing something that I'm giving advice about something that I've been doing for, you know, about 10 years, I would say, 9 years at this point. Um, the big things that you got to understand about this is it's not about necessarily copying my routine in terms of what I do. It's about copying my tools. It's not copying my job. You get it? So you're not looking to do the same job that I do. It's you're looking to use the same tools. So let's get into it. Thank you to everyone who's out there. We have Michael, Ignacio, and thank you to the 9 people who smashed up the likes. Let's talk about this. I was kind of waiting for people to come on. Looks like we've got some people on board now. Let us know in the comments where you would travel if money was not a limitation. And I'll tell you why this is an important exercise. Because one of the books that I read that got me thinking about how to take the limit off of possibility was Think and Grow Rich. That's a book that you can easily get on YouTube as an audio book, or you can go to the library or order it for like $6. I've read that book 3 times, 2 times, and then recently I started it again. I haven't finished it, but it teaches you how to think about planning. Basically, it's like a manifestation guidebook, really, in a way, but it gets your mind working like a supercomputer. And so when you tell yourself you can't do something, you can't do it. You will never do it. So you have to have this like hopeful faith. It's even in scripture they say faith without works is dead, right? Which means that you can't just have faith in something and hope something falls out of the sky onto your lap and you achieve it. You have to basically work for it. Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, I use pro athletes because that's the most popular thing that people know, but they all had that work ethic. They believed they could do it. So the first thing to all of this is believing you can do it just like me, believing that you can travel the world like me, believing that you can travel the world like some of your favorite explorers, like Captain Cook or whoever your favorite explorers were. I'm going to turn off this light here because it's kind of bright. But whoever you looked up to that was a Robinson Crusoe, whatever it was, okay, or your favorite YouTuber or whoever your grandpa. For me, it was my grandpa, right? Like he used to tell us stories about how he went to China and he had dim sum. And I used to think like, wow, that'd be cool. You went to China. I want to go to China. And he was from Australia and he lived in Mexico. So for me, he was a big inspiration. My uncle also traveled a lot. So I knew that it can be done. He went to Australia, I think like 30 times, but he was killed in a car accident in Mexico, actually. But I come from a family of not everyone, like maybe like 10% of the people were travelers or nomadic. And the 90% of them were just family people who stayed at home and, took care of the fort. But I knew it could happen. So it starts with that belief that you two know that it's possible for you to travel. That's the most important thing that you have to start with, believing that it's possible for you. If you think it's out of your reach, it is out of your reach. So you have to realize, like, hey, if he can do it, I can do it. Okay. So we've already set the ground. That's like the foundation of this whole thing is belief that you can actually do it. And then from there, you have to start working in the direction to make it happen. And some of the things that you can do are principles. There's a book by Ray Dalio. I think a lot of my success came from reading books, or I don't read books actually. I listen to them on audio books on Audible. But another good book along with Think and Grow Rich was Principles by Ray Dalio. And he talks about, the keys to success. A lot of it just comes from having the proper principles. They call it the principality, whatever you want to say. But Awake Yet says, hey, Jeff, do you plan on traveling to Africa anytime soon? I keep talking about wanting to go to Tanzania and South Africa. I've only been to Egypt and Africa. And I also have an interest in going to Madagascar. So hopefully that all comes together. I've got Nepal, Sri Lanka, Maldives. Those are kind of on my radar. I've got South Korea coming up again and Japan. So I'm kind of like, oh man, I'm in Bangkok again, which is like my base camp. I'm like, which way do I go? Which way do I go? But I like Bangkok. It's a city that's got everything. I mean, it's like one of those places when you land there, you feel like, hey, it's great. Michael says, "Yeah, I listen to Think and Grow Rich a few times a year." Yeah, I mean, it's a guidebook. I mean, it's definitely one of the best ones. In my previous video I made like this 5 years ago, I listened to my video I made 5 years ago because people would send it to me and they'd say, "Hey, I watched this video," and I was like, "You know what? I should make a new one about that." So I made that 5 years ago when I was active in traveling. I'm making a new one, more modern, with more wisdom, I guess you could say. Um, Hopefully I'm trying to condense this into a quick one, but it's might be a little bit longer than I was expecting. So here's where it comes down to with the financial aspect of it. You've got to have more than one stream of income. So right now, most people have one stream of income. That would be their main job. Well, that's not sustainable. If you lose that one stream of income, you're without income. Okay. So I always tell people 5 streams of income. I'm not sure exactly where I got that from. It might have come from a book. It might have come from a podcast. It might have come from a YouTuber. I don't remember exactly. But I remember when I heard that, the light bulb went off over my head and said, yeah, you got to have more than one stream of revenue stream. You got to have 5. And then I got to thinking, I'm like, well, is 5 enough? And then how many can you really have? Uh, so more than one stream of income, but aim for 5. Okay. So how can you get 5 streams of income? Okay. You have your main job. Your main job may come with a 401k or some sort of retirement plan or a pension. I don't know. I don't know how old you are. Maybe you're 60, maybe you're 26. I don't know your age. So whether or not Social Security is kicking in for you, or retirement from the military, or retirement from the police force, or retirement from the hospital, or wherever you're coming from, I don't know. But that could be a source of income, right? A pension. And then you have investments that you made. In my case, I was making investments in cryptocurrency and I was successful with that, even though I didn't really think at the time that I was going to be successful at it because I thought it was maybe a scam or something. And it ended up working out. And that ended up being a big catalyst for me. But I feel as though I put myself in position to get lucky. You could say, oh, you got to create magic around yourself. But I would say, let's just be more realistic. It's not necessarily magic. It's putting yourself in a good situation, in a situation where you can get lucky. And when you make investments, some of those investments can go to zero and some can go way up and really change your life. So investment is another stream of income. But you've got to be paying attention to this stuff. It doesn't just fall out of the sky. You've got to do research. You've got to pay attention. Then you have other streams of income that come from something like, for me, in this case now, YouTube. But before, it was a client. I had clients. So I was learning online skills and I had gotten good at that. And I showed them that I knew how to do that skill. And I had clients, more than one client actually, but I don't have any clients anymore because I've changed my whole dynamic. Having clients can be a bit stressful because, you got to cater to their needs. They take up your time, right? But it's something you can do. Online clients, whether you're teaching them how to do drop shipping or you're teaching them how to, you've got to learn trades. You've got to learn digital trades if you want to be a digital nomad. I mean, you could even maybe be a carpenter, or you could be an electrician and still travel. And the way you would do that is sign up with a charity or a missionary. You could be a missionary. I've met plenty of people in the Philippines who work for the church and they're living in the Philippines. Just basically, someone was a doctor, someone's a teacher, English teacher. It doesn't matter. The mission has a variety of different jobs for you. Same with charities. You want to go to Africa, you could get with a charity. So I mean, I think UNICEF, I don't know all of the charities that are hiring. I've never actually done that work, but I've met people who work for charities and that's how they travel. I've met these people who call themselves woofers. Woofers are people who do farming. So every time they travel, they go to a farm and they say, "Hey, I'll trade you sweat equity for a place to sleep and some food." And then that's how they survive. They don't even transact in money. I've never done that, but that's something that I've seen people do. Everything's going to be up to your variation. But again, it's the belief that it can happen for you. You setting the wheels in motion and then going for it, right? And that's a big key. I've already given you two books that are really important: Think and Grow Rich and Principles by Ray Dalio. There was also How to Win Friends and Influence People. If you want to learn how to do day trading, there was a book. Oh man, I wish I could remember. It's called Trading in the Zone. That's the name of the book, Trading in the Zone. It taught me how to learn. It taught me how to understand markets. And I think right now is a good time to really do that. I mean, when I was, I had at one point in time $50,000 in debt. And it felt like a gray cloud over my head, causing stress, anxiety, a lot of pressure. It wasn't all student loans. Some of it was credit card debt. It was like I didn't know what was going on. And when I was in that position, I look back on it, it was actually a blessing in disguise, because what was happening during that time was I had pressure. I was backed into a corner where I felt like I needed to learn and grow. So it forced me to just become obsessed with learning and growing. And through that, I started becoming obsessed with education, self-education, not necessarily going to college, although I did go to college. Although I didn't finish my master's degree program, I did finish my bachelor's. I'm not going to sit here and say that was that important, although I do believe that education has its use. So even college. I benefited from college, but I think you can get there with any sort of education. These days you can go to YouTube University, right? That's what we call people who watch a bunch of people like me who are already in position doing it. And they share that information. It's not just me, but it's other people. And you just learn through YouTube. I learned a lot from other YouTubers, right? So you could even become a YouTuber yourself. It doesn't have to be in travel. If you're traveling, like you could do a financial cryptocurrency channel. You could do um, who knows what gaming channels. I mean, there's all sorts of different channels that people have, right? I have a channel related to real estate back in Arizona. I have a reviews channel. Review channels are really popular. I mean, one of the cool things about having a review channel is you get free stuff all the time. Like even when I only had like 2,000 subscribers, people were like, "Hey, can we send you a mini fridge and you can review it?" And I'd be like, "Wow, you're going to send me a mini fridge?" And I only got like 1,200 subscribers. And they're like, "Yeah, we just need someone to review it and make a video," because that's what they're looking for. But you got to make like kind of professional video. I'm not even going to say that the video that I made was that professional, but it was a review and they used it and they were happy and they asked me to do a fan next, like one of those ceiling fans. I don't know, but I don't have time to do that because I'm always traveling. So, but you can go. It could be a variety of different reviews. Like you could review travel products. Who knows what it is? But there's so many different things that you can do on YouTube. It doesn't just have to be travel. In fact, travel seems a bit oversaturated at this point. What you're looking for is up and coming trends, things that are new, that are not where there's not a lot of people already doing it. Um, and that goes into like the teaching people how to do AI. Whenever you hear there's a new trend coming, that was one of the big keys. I would say this is something I'm going to drill home with you. Whenever you hear something like Bitcoin or AI or virtual reality or something like this coming, pay attention to it. Don't just be like, "Oh, I'm too old for that," or TikTok, "I'm too old for that," or SpaceX or any of that stuff. That was something that I learned kind of by watching the stubbornness of my own father and my own family, who, uh, they just didn't want to stay up to beat with the times, and so I think that you watch a lot of old people. I saw a lot of older people who ended up not being able to find jobs because they couldn't because the jobs transitioned away from what they knew how to do. As crazy as that might sound, I mean, someone who can lay rock and block and do be an electrician might not be in demand as much as someone who can do AI. Or well, they are in demand. In fact, they're probably going to make a comeback. Someone predicted in the next 10 years trade journeymen and tradesmen are going to be making a huge comeback. That's if the robots don't take those jobs. I don't know, but I think that's the direction that they're trying to take AI anyway, but it's probably more than 10 years away. But whenever there's a new technology, whether it be crypto, Bitcoin, financial technologies, or artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality, there's all these different things. Pay attention to that. That is important. Don't be someone who's so prideful. That's a big thing. Is check your pride, your ego. I mean, I even get carried away with it sometimes, and I'm like, oh man, because it's fun. It's fun to feel good about yourself and juice yourself up every once in a while. But at the end of the day, don't let it get to your head. Having a big ego is something that is totally destructive to anyone. So I try to keep your ego in check. Just being aware of that, like pride is a sin, right? Is like something you don't want to do. So whenever you find yourself in a situation where you're feeling like super prideful or super cocky or super arrogant, catch yourself and say, "Oh, I got to reel it back." Happens to me. Happens to all best of us. Happens to anybody, right? Jennifer says, grateful for your information you are sharing. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So um those just some of those tools that I'm giving you, keep your ego in check, make sure you're open-minded. Being open-minded is really important. Also being open-minded to the people you're coming across. You can learn from pretty much anybody. And if they're really trying to get to know you or something, I'm not saying, let your guard down because, there's going to be scammers. I mean, I get scammed in Vietnam a couple times. More than anything, it was Vietnam. Like I went for 4 months and I was like, man, I've been doing really good. I've learned how to not get scammed. And then I get to Vietnam and I'm like, oh, geez, well, I'm getting taken for a ride. And then I go into a Facebook group and people are like, oh, you rookie travelers need to learn how to not get scammed. Because I said, hey, has anyone else noticed that Vietnam's got a little bit of some scams in Hanoi? And they were talking to me like it was my first time out of the country or something. I'm like, well, actually, I've been traveling Southeast Asia for 4 years and I've been to 72 different countries. And they're like, oh, okay. Well, how did you get scammed? Are you just, and I'm like, it happens, man. Just, when you think you know everything, you see a new one. Same thing happened in China before. I got scammed pretty good over there. Things I had never seen. But like I said, I went for 4 months where I didn't have any issues, but when you first get on the road, those little things are gonna pop up. So you're gonna have to have these safeguards in place. Some of the safeguards that I have in place, Reek says he's been watching me since the crypto days. That was a big part of the sustainability of it. So think you have to evolve over time, but Bitcoin, it went up and then it went down. So what happens when it goes down? You can't just stop. The show still goes on, right? You don't want to close down the shop and stop doing what you enjoy. Even when the lockdowns happened, that kind of slowed me down a bit. But I was traveling more in North America than I had ever had, and I looked at the bright side of that. I said, well, if those lockdowns didn't happen, I wouldn't have gone all across America like I did. I wouldn't have gone to Mexico and Costa Rica because I probably would have come back over here to Asia and gone around to Europe and Africa and Australia and who knows where else. Maybe some more of the other islands. So yeah, there's always this attitude that you have to have of I think it is important is there's a silver lining to everything, a blessing in disguise. So what happens is when there's like an event happening, I always kind of am like, I do react to it. I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't react, but then I say, okay, why did that just happen? In my mind, I'm like, okay, why is this happening? Why is this happening? I'm like, okay, let's take a moment of pause. Let's evaluate what's going on. And I'm like, because if I flash back on everything that ever happened that was perceived negative, it all worked together for the good. The saying, all things work together for the good, right? You guys know it, some of you. And so it's true. And so when I got my cell phone pickpocketed out of my pocket a few years ago, I was kind of like, okay, why did that? What was the good in that? I still haven't figured out what was the good in that. But I would say now the good in it was that I'm more protective when I'm in big crowds, right? So that could be a positive. Just having that kind of mentality of when something happens, don't get overreacting. Don't think that it's the end of the world. Don't think you have to give up. You can still stay on the road. I mean, this used to happen whenever there was a big chaotic event where I lost my cell phone or um, something would happen. I'm like, okay, got to fly home. And nowadays, when something like that happens, I'm kind of like, okay, pause, take a moment, relax, think about, let things kind of calm down a little bit, and then press forward. And then you look back and you're like, well, I overcame that, I overcame that, I overcame that. So you have this spirit of resilience, um, and I think that's a big thing that kind of goes hand in hand with being able to travel the world because it's all about the mentality. It's all about the ability to overcome difficulties, and when you see a hurdle, always overcoming that, being finding a way over the hurdle or around the hurdle. So whenever there's a problem, you're always able to find a solution. So you become a problem solver. Because when you're a young person, it's always mommy, 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 daddy, daddy, can you help me? Dad, can you help me? Hey, mom, can you help me? But then you get to a point where mom and dad are no longer available to help you with everything. So you have to become the problem solver yourself. And then you become the parent, and then everyone comes to you to solve all the problems, right? So putting yourself in a position where when you have a challenge, you find a way around it, over it, under it, whatever it has to be, but you find a way to get through it. That's a huge component with everything, with everything. So again, these are principles that come about um, becoming self-reliant. I mean, some people are always going to be a beggar. They're always going to come to you for everything. And then some people are going to be the person that everyone comes to. And so, maybe you could be a medium in between, but at some point in time, if you resolve to say, I don't want to be dependent on anybody. This is some things that I remember in my journey that ended up happening when I was traveling. I used to only be able to afford to stay at hostels and cheap accommodations. Well, I was staying at a hostel one time in New Zealand because it's expensive. I mean, even for a hostel in New Zealand is around like $95 a night for a shared room because it was like the whole town was booked. And I was there, and I remember there was a smell of stinky feet. This guy had the worst smelling shoes. Like he'd been hiking all around New Zealand. And there was another person in the room who was snoring super loud. And I think I snore nowadays anyway. So, it's not like I'm putting them down. But when you're in a room of 14 people that are total strangers and you're paying $95 a night, you think to yourself, okay, I've got to make it to where money is not an issue. Where if I wanted to stay in a better accommodation, I can just do it. I don't have to worry about, oh, I don't have the money. Because when people start talking like that as a traveler, it's not good. You don't want to be in that situation. So you want to have this idea that you need to have unlimited access to funds, and you can do it. Again, don't say you can't. You have to say you can. Everything is about I can, and I'm not being some weirdo here talking like Grant Cardone or anything because it's true. I mean, I like Grant Cardone, by the way. I'm just saying, but people think that they're all like these guys that like to sell all sorts of stuff, sell the dream. But there's something true about everything they're saying. You have to have this belief, and then you have to get to work on what you believe you can do. And that's the Tom Brady, Michael Jordan attitude of, hey, I'm going to outwork everybody. I'm going to outdo everybody. I can do whatever I want. It's not even about what you have up here. It's just about what you have right here, which is your ability, your tenacity to keep going forward. Thank you to the 30 people who smashed up the likes, by the way. Um, Yes, and you can travel the world. I always see people, especially if they're like 21 or 22, and they say, "Oh, what's your job?" Like, you go to a bar and the bartender's like 22, and they're like, "What's your job?" And I'm like, "Well, I actually travel around the world and do this and that." And they're like, "Oh, you have a dream job. You have the best job." And they're like, "I want to be just like you." That's what I'm saying. I know people want to travel the world. This is what they say. They're like, "Oh, I want to be just like you. You can do that." I don't know how long I'll do it. I oftentimes wonder, well, like after 10 years of traveling around the world, will I retire from traveling around the world or will I keep going? I don't know. But I always tell them, I'm like, oh, you can do it. I don't even say you can do it. I say you will do it. They're like, "Yeah, but I'm young." I'm like, "Yeah, when you're 30 or something, you're probably gonna do it. You're gonna do it." I got out of the habit of even saying you're probably gonna do it. You can do it. I just say you will do it because I'm basically installing this idea of, hey, it's in your mind. You're gonna do it, and because someone did that to me, they said you're gonna be beyond blessed, and I was like, I'm gonna be beyond blessed, and they were so convinced of it when they were saying it to me that I actually started believing it. So when you say something to someone and you can actually, with your words, you can either bless them or curse them, right? With your words. So if you have the ability to build someone's confidence with their words and show them that you believe in them, and you just cast all doubt aside, that's really that positive thinking in works. But again, you got to get to work on it. You got to put it the wheels in motion. What's going on, Princess Michelle? Going to Portugal and Spain next month. Oh yeah, I want to go to Portugal and Spain. I want to go to the Madeira, uh, Tenerife, Cape Verde. I want to go to all those places. I've been actually feel like I've been getting called to go to that whole area. I know you're going to Spain and Portugal, but those islands are where I want to go. In the Canary Island, the Azores, all that. Um, yeah, I mean, you can never with they say really appreciate your blessing for unlimited income, boss. Thanks a lot. Okay, so about the unlimited income thing, you never want to get too comfortable. You can't really let your guard down. You always have to kind of keep paying attention to your funds, your monetary situation. So don't ever get too comfortable where you're like, blowing the money left and right. You always want to be bringing in more than you're spending. So for me, the stress that I have now is, am I making more than I'm spending? That's like my biggest stress. First, you got to get to the point where you're making you're making as much as you're spending, and then you've got to start getting to a point where you're making more than you're spending. So you've got to make that a point of emphasis for yourself, that's something that, and remember, you don't make money, you earn money. That was a big thing that you have to get right with your words, because your words are important how you use them. So when you're manifesting, praying, whatever it is that you do, uh, doing a mantra or something, your words count. So remember, you don't make money. You're not a printing machine. You're not the guy at the Federal Reserve or a girl at the Federal Reserve making money. You're earning money. So when you're doing that, you're trying to earn money. Remember, be very specific. There was someone who told me that there's a word in the English language that's kind of iffy that you might not want to use too often. It's well, because, oh, well, I didn't know that. Or, hey, there's a well over there. So there's some words that have dualities in them when you're speaking or manifesting or praying or whatever. So kind of pay attention to all that. I'm not saying that's a big factor, but hey, you learn from people, right? You learn from the I mean, I've sat down at bars, had conversations with old men, mostly old men, because it is what it is. You'll be drinking. It's like that Billy Currington song, "That Old Man and Me." I think his name is Billy Currington. It's drinking in a bar. You're just drinking beers, and you just so happen to be sitting next to an older gentleman, and next thing you know, you start talking about life, right? So those are things that all come in handy. Jeff, the great thing about travel is you are able to see different culture in all parts of the world. I wonder how your body adjusts to different climate. There are times where I do get tired. Like right now, I've been tired the last few days, so I had to really slow down. That's why I came to Bangkok, because I was kind of like, if I don't go to Bangkok, if I don't go back to Thailand and rest a little bit, instead of traveling, because I haven't really been filming, I've mostly been doing stuff. That's why I'm able to do a live stream right now. Um, but yeah, your body, it does get fatigued. So you have to take time to take care of your body and recharge. And if you can't do it on the road, then you have to go home and recharge the body. And sometimes it needs sleep and rest. And for me, I like to travel. So I'm always going on the road, walking. You guys will notice I walk a lot. Thank you to the 33 people who hit the likes. If you guys hit the likes, I'll keep going here. That's right, Lambert. It is. People are crazy. Yeah, but that's a song that inspires. I mean, you'll be at a bar and you'll hear a song and you'll be like, "Oh, it'll just put you in a good mood." That's why I like beer. I say beer is medicine. Although I've been getting headaches lately, so I knew I was dehydrated. That was another thing that was coming up. So I've been having to drink more water instead of more beer, because when you're traveling and you have this idea that drinking beer is a good thing, you start drinking beer for 3 months, at least 5 times a week. And, I don't know if that's necessarily good for your body. It's not that I know I'm not addicted to it. It's just a habit. I know I'm not addicted to it because I can live without it. Right. But, hydrating your body. So I eat a lot of fruit, finding different things that replenish your body. That's important. And then using like Apple Notes, when you find out something about yourself or about your body that works, put it in the notes so you don't forget it next time you come in a situation where you're fatigued or you're anxious or something like that. Because I used to go to these airports, especially right when they lifted the lockdowns. The airports were mayhem in 2022. That they were losing luggage, they were canceling flights, and the airports were just super overwhelming. And traveling at the pace that I do, which is, I was traveling maybe I was in each destination maybe 24 to 48 hours. So I was going through cities 24 to 48 hours, going through airports, going through ferry terminals, going through bus stops, covering a lot of ground, going all across Europe in the span of a month and a half. I was getting anxious. I was starting to get anxiety. And I was like, oh, this isn't good because if I don't get this under control, I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep traveling. So that's something that I had to go back in my mind and say, why is this happening? You know? Um, Eric says, next year, my mom and dad are planning a trip to London. A lot of people go to England because they're tracing back to their family roots. A lot of people go to Italy because they're tracing back their family roots. A lot of people go to Africa because they're tracing back family roots. A lot of people go to parts of Latin America. So, yeah, I've heard a lot of people going to London, Scotland, UK because of that reason. I went there because I was like, part of my family was from Ireland. But you'd be surprised when you get there. Most of the people who live there are the locals, and you tell them, "Hey, I'm Irish," or "Hey, I'm Scottish." They're like, "Yeah, what's it to me? What's and what?" Like, there's a bunch of Irish people around here. Oh, you're an American, so you think you're special because your family's from Ireland. And I realize, okay, no one really cares. It's like being in the military. It's like, you know, when you're a veteran, you can't tell people all the time that you're a veteran because most people won't really care. And so you realize that you're not special and all this stuff. But I'm just saying that. So when I travel now, if I go to a place, it's for me. It's not to go around and show off and flex and think that people are going to look at me and be like, "Hey, you're from Ireland? That's cool. Let me hear your whole life story," because they don't really care. I'm sharing that because once I realized that about because I wanted to go to Ireland for that reason because I was like, "Oh, I'm 25% Irish. I'm 25% Dutch. I'm 25%, this and that, whatever ancestry.com says." But you realize that you got to do it for you. It's not about someone else seeing you because if you travel for other people for Instagram or for celebrity status or whatever, you're not going to really enjoy the travel. Remember, at the end of the day, you're doing it for you, no one else. That's important. Cedric says, I'd like to be your assistant in your travels. Is it like that? Is that I like too much? Oh yeah. You know, I don't know if I'm looking for an assistant right now because my pace of travel is so fast, but I would like to assist you in getting to your ability to travel wherever you want to go. Yeah, Italy will be next. Of course, you will go there. It's going to happen. I mean, getting to Italy is not too hard to do. It's something that you got to do. It's something you should do. I mean, there's a few places on earth that you really just got to go to, right? I mean, we each person has a different uh, necessity, but I would say Italy is one of those places that most people should try to get there. And when you go to Italy, you'll notice that most people try to go there because it's one of the most visited cities or countries in the world, with Rome and Florence and Naples. So many places in Italy. Italy's like one of those places. Same with the UK. For me, that was a big bucket list item. Australia was one. And then, I've pretty much got all the big ones off my bucket list. The ones that I'm now going to are the ones that are just things on the outliers. I mean, I do have a little bit of a bucket list. Like I tried to make a bucket list a while back, and I came up with Tanzania. I came up with Nepal, Sri Lanka, Maldives, Tahiti, places I haven't been, even though I've been to 72. But I mean, that's not even half of the planet. There's so many places to go to. Uh, I still have not been to Laos. That's like one of the only countries in Asia, in Southeast Asia, that I've never been to. I've been to India, have not been to Bangladesh or Pakistan, so we'll see about that. My question is about travel for low income with me with autism. Well, so in your case, if you have low income, you can find other ways to get traveling, like working for a missionary or a charity, like maybe working for UNICEF or working for a Christian missionary, going to the church, or just going online and saying uh, charities that allow you to work overseas. So in your case, if you want to get out of your country or out of your hometown and you want to travel and you have low income, that's a good way to get started, because that was how I got started in traveling. Even before I was traveling on my own, I was in the Navy. The Navy was showing me the world. That's how I got the confidence, right? Like I went when I was in the Navy, we went to Singapore, we went to Hong Kong, we went to Thailand, and that gave me the confidence later to be like, okay, I've already been there, so I know what to expect. So I wasn't as scared to go there alone, you know? So if you're really young and you're just getting started, we're talking, under 30, getting a job that allows you to work abroad. You could do that with a cruise ship. You could do that with, we've already talked about the charities, the missions. Or if you want to do it on your own, get a remote job, be an online teacher. Online education is a big thing, whether you want to teach people Spanish or English. I mean, I talked to somebody who teaches people, I think, Spanish or English. There was a bunch of different teachers I've talked to that do online. They literally, and I'm like, okay, so you like travel, you live in the Philippines, and you work as an online teacher. You do realize you can work anywhere as long as they have an internet connection. And she was like, yeah. I'm like, well, put cancel your lease and hit the road. And they're always hesitant, but deep down they want to get going. They want to get on the road and do it. So another way is being a stewardess. I know that a lot of these airlines are hiring stewardess because, believe it or not, people don't really like doing that long across the ocean. Well, you probably do believe it. You fly enough times across the ocean and back, they're having a hard time finding stewardess and airline help. I think there's some regulations on that. You have to be like 5'4" at least. I think in some cases you have to have a degree of some sort. But hey, if you want to travel and you've got a degree and you're over 5'4", I don't think there's anything stopping you from being a flight attendant for Qatar or American Airlines or Delta. I mean, you can see the list of ways to get on the road. It's there. And again, it's believing that you can do it, but also getting to work on finding out what's going to be the best way for you to get started on your world travels. And so the thing that I don't ever really have patience for is when someone says, I want to travel the world and do that too, but I don't know how, or I can't do it, or something like that. Well, then I'm like, okay, I go through the steps of explaining the proper principles and the way they can also do it. But, you know, it's basically comes down to you've got to take action. So each one of you, if you want to do it, you've got to take action. You got to make some changes. Sometimes things can happen real fast. Sometimes things just take time, 6 months, a year to manifest, to become a reality. But there's no doubt about it. Nothing's going to stop you when you put your mind to it. I think when you're growing up, whatever you put your mind to, you can do. Whatever you want to do, you can do. They weren't joking. They weren't joking. I mean, I sometimes pitch myself when I sit here and say, I travel the world and I get paid to do it. I make money while traveling. I'm like, how did that happen? And I'm like, it's more or less just mind over matter. It was like I believed that I could travel the world, so I did it. And how that happened and how the money came to me, it came from different ways. Some of it I didn't even anticipate. So these are all things I just want to point out. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for hitting the likes, and we'll see you guys on the next one. I got some cool videos coming up, including best places for digital nomads, which is going to correlate to this. That's where you need to be focusing, the digital nomad stuff. So, not just me, but all across the internet, start researching about being a digital nomad, because you're working from your computer, you're working from your cell phone, and you're nomadic, and you can go from Bali to Thailand to Nepal to Bhutan to India to Dubai, and you're working from your phone. You know, you know what I'm saying? Isn't that what you want? So, anyways, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you to all the new subscribers also.